This is William Hall with Resist the Mainstream. Before we jump into today's video, just a quick reminder to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so that you get notified when our videos go live. So a congressman may have actually figured out that there's a good reason why they should already know who the person that the cocaine belonged to. Many of you are familiar with this story. It's been ongoing for a few weeks now, but the reality is there is now some information that we can kind of go off of, some speculation that we can use to make an educated guess on the situation. Here he is talking about that in this video.
So, now we're hearing that you all aren't going to get any information on this investigation until later in the month. If the cocaine was found on a bag, doesn't it have fingerprints on it? And how long would it take to answer that question? Weeks, days, hours? Half an hour?
That's just, Martha, that's a great question, because I asked several down in Texas. I asked some of our state troopers, Texas Rangers and sheriffs, those kind of people who do this for a living for decades. And they all said to me that on very porous surfaces like bags and envelopes, you'll be able to determine within an hour if there's fingerprints on it. Within an hour. By my math, we're 192 hours from the time it was discovered. And yet we don't know, because if there was no fingerprints, they could have told us immediately. So I suspect there are fingerprints, and you can run it through a database. And this was found where high-level aides and staffers are. So most of them were fingerprinted at one time or another. So they very well may already know who it belongs to and aren't sharing it with us. And that's my greatest concern and worry.
All right, so that's Pat Fallon chiming in on this whole ordeal with the cocaine that was found in the White House. And of course, we should already know by now that this was a situation that they should have figured out way earlier than it has been in reality. And the reason why that's the case is simply because of the fact that the Bidens are in the White House. I think even so that the results of what they actually found there are based off of something that they don't want to leak into the news. It's something that they're trying to keep under wraps in some way. So, of course, you have him chiming in on this particular situation and going through the article here on Resist the Mainstream. So he's basically telling the Fox News anchor that these law enforcement officials in his home and how long it takes for them to get fingerprints, it's not that long, right? It was in a bag. So the idea is that it shouldn't have taken anywhere near as long for them to have figured out that this is really what was going on. Why is it that we're seeing these delays? Why is it that this is taking place? And ultimately, what is it that's causing them to sit here and not want to give us the results at all? I mean, as he mentioned in the video, they should have known by now, who did it belong to? It's not like this was just in someone's random house. This is the White House we're talking about here, and it's very obvious that they should have known what's going on. Once again, you have officials saying last week that they thought that the Secret Service would have had its investigation concluded by today, but the timeline has been pushed back. Okay, once again, why is the timeline being pushed back? What is it that they're not wanting to say at this point? It's almost like they're probably giving a nice little warning to the Bidens or whoever it belongs to and saying, you know what, we know it was you. Let's just go ahead and get ahead of this story. Let's go ahead and figure out what's going on, because that's exactly what they love to do in these particular situations. Listen, we know who it belongs to, right? We know there's only a limited amount of people that are there. I don't think it's rocket science. But keep in mind, once again, we have to keep the story and look at it in the grand scheme of things. If Trump was in the White House, what do you think the story would have looked like? I mean, it's very obvious to me, because quite simply, what they're going to be basically doing is saying, you know what, they would have figured this investigation out within probably 30 minutes, right? I mean, and better yet, you would have actually have had the mainstream media that would have been already right there saying, you know what, it's Trump's family, it was Don Jr.'s. They would have been already making these wild allegations right out of the gate with no evidence or anything else like that. They would have already they would have had that story on lock already in the media. But yet what we're seeing here is delay after delay after delay. It's almost like they're just trying to cover this up. And of course that's what they're doing, because that's always what these people try to do in these types of situations. So kind of going on the article, you have the FBI veteran Mark Morgan and Commissioner of the U.S. Customs basically talking about this whole investigation and the cocaine residue that was found. And he was in an interview with the Daily Mail, and Morgan laid out a series of conjectures hinting at potential hindrances in the progress of the U.S. Secret Service ongoing inquiry, and also raising questions about whether certain members of the executive branch are impeding the investigation. Once again, guys, this is obvious. It is clear who these things belong to. They're just playing the stall game, hoping that this will kind of get out of the news. Whoever it is that this actually belongs to can go ahead and get ahead of this story and pretend as if none of this actually went down. So Morgan, seasoned law enforcement professional, contends that the case should have been closed within a few days. His assertive stance hinges on the assertion that everybody that enters the White House is manifested, which of course it is. I mean, how this is high priority here, right? How is it that somebody can even manage to get them in there? It had to be somebody that had some very high level of clearance. So Morgan says, unmoved by the enigma that seems to pervade this investigation, proffers that with forensic evidence, controlled access, cameras, witnesses, and manifests of why or who actually is coming to the White House and who's going through those areas, and a limited time frame. The probe should be, in essence, a formality. But once again, this is very clear to me who this stuff belongs to, why it actually belongs to these people, and what they're doing there. We know what's going on. It doesn't take a scientist to figure this out, and what they're doing is just playing the stall game. But we know that the story would look very, very differently if someone else was actually in the White House. You know who I'm talking about. And this is the way that these stories are going to go. This is how it is with everything. I mean, it was the same thing with the laptop and everything else. They're just going to sit there and they're going to stall and they're going to wait and they're going to try their best to cover everything up and pretend as if nothing's really going on when we know what's happening. We know what the situation is. But that's exactly what these people are doing in this. So let us know down in the comments. What do you think of this story? What do you think is happening in the White House with his cocaine? Who do you think it belongs to? Is it specifically one of the Bidens? Do you think it's Hunter's? Is it someone else that just has to be on, that happens to be on staff there? Let us know your thoughts. We'd enjoy reading those down in the comments as well. Remember also to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications as well, and we'll catch you on the next one.